In this video, I'm going to introduce you to the concept of combinatorics or hand combinations. So you'll commonly hear the term combinatorics, but when we're talking about it, we're simply saying that we're talking about hand combinations. So what are hand combinations? Well, hand combinations are all the possible combinations of any two cards in a 52 card deck that we use for Texas Hold'em. And these two card combinations can make up any starting hand that we can get as our whole card. So for example, Ace King. And a very simple example would be the Ace of Hearts and King of Spades. That would be one hand combination of all the possible combinations of Ace King. Now, in regards to hand combinations or combinatorics, there are two different types. There are pocket pairs and there are non-pair hands. So with a pocket pair can be made up any 6 ways. So there's a total of 6 combinations. We'll actually take a look at this visualized on the next few slides in regards to all this. Now, if you're not dealt a pocket pair, you're dealt a non-paired hand, and a non-paired hand such as Ace King can be made up a total of 16 different ways. If it's a suited non-pair hand, then it can be made up 4 different ways. And if it's off-suited, it can be made up 12 different ways. And don't worry, we're going to talk about the importance of combinatorics on slide 6. But before we do, I want to make sure you understand what they are. So a pocket pair can be made up 6 different ways, and here it is visualized. So I took pocket aces and I broke it up into the 6 different ways in which we can be dealt pocket aces. So I'm not going to actually talk through every single one, but here they are visualized. Just understand that when you have a pocket pair, irregardless of what it is, you can be dealt that hand 6 different ways. In regards to a suited non-pair hand, well, you know there's 4 different suits, so we can be dealt that hand 4 different ways. So for example, Ace of Clubs, King of Clubs, Ace of Spades, King of Spades, Ace of Hearts, King of Hearts, and Ace of Diamonds, King of Diamonds. Now, if you're dealt Ace King as an off-suited hand, well, there are 12 different ways in which you can be dealt that hand. And they're all listed here on the slide. Again, I'm not going to list all of them because we've been going through this list for a very long time, and it would just take up too much time in this video. But just understand that if you're dealt Ace King offsuit, there's 12 different ways in which you can be dealt Ace King offsuit. And combined, when we think about a non-paired hand such as Ace King, if we combine both of these, we can be dealt that hand a total of 16 different ways. So there are the 4 suited plus the 12 off-suited. That would give us a total of 16 combinations or 16 different ways in which we can be dealt a non-paired hand such as Ace King. So knowing that, what's the importance of combinatorics? Well, the importance is really there's 2 primary reasons. The first one is to estimate the likelihood of our opponent having any particular made hand, or really any particular hand, both pre-flop and post-flop. So understanding combinatorics and the basics that we're going to talk about on the next several slides, we can use that information and we can analyze based upon the range that we think our opponent has and the board texture to determine how many combos of a particular hand that they actually have. So we can quantitatively estimate our opponent's made hands. And when I say made hands, I'm talking about post-flop, and pre-flop, we're really talking about any starting hand. Now, in regards to more advanced poker topics, which are beyond the scope of this course, but once we start playing a polarized style of play where we have bluffs and we have value hands, and we're playing a game theory optimal style of play, then we can also use combinatorics to be balanced, meaning that our polarized ranges are completely balanced. So understanding how combinatorics are, we can count up combos, and let's say that we want to have a 2-to-1 ratio of value hands to bluffs on the river based upon our bet side because we're playing a game theory optimal style of play. Well, we can actually develop that range utilizing combinatorics. And again, that's well beyond the scope of this course, but the basis for doing that is using combos. So for example, we want to, let's say for example, that we want to have 6 combos of value hands, and we want to have 3 combos of bluff hands on the river, well, we know how many combos that we can use, and that's the basis for doing that. Now let's talk about our pocket paired hands and the 3 + 2 + 1 rule. So whenever we want to estimate the likelihood that our opponent holds any particular pocket pair, we can use this simple 3 + 2 + 1 rule that I've devised, and I believe other poker players and coaches use this as well. So let's go ahead and let's do an example where we have pocket aces. So with pocket aces, we can start with this 3 + 2 + 1 = 6 combinations of pocket aces. And don't worry if this is confusing. So understand with pocket aces, remember there's 6 different combos. Well, as we start removing cards, we can actually start Xing this off from the left all the way to the right. And so let's do an example of that when we have an ace. So let's say that a nit open raises to 4 big blinds under the gun, and we have ace queen of clubs. So the question is, how many combinations of pocket aces does our opponent have in his under the gun opening range? So specifically, if we have one ace, how many combinations of pocket aces are there actually left in the deck? Well, we could simply use this 3 + 2 + 1 rule, and we eliminate, starting at the left, we eliminate the 3, and that would tell us, and you'll notice here I went ahead and crossed out as well, we have 2 + 1. That tells us that there are 3 combinations of pocket aces left in the deck. So if we want to actually look at the combos, here they are. Here are the 6 different combos. And what we have done is any combo that has the ace of clubs, we've eliminated. So ace of clubs, ace of spades, ace of clubs, ace of diamonds, and this should be a heart, and ace of clubs, ace of heart. So let's actually try to draw a heart in here, because that is a bit of a typo. So those 3 combinations, we've removed them because our opponent can't have those combinations, but there's 3 left. And rather than actually having to think through this mentally and about all these combos down here, we can use this 3 + 2 + 1 rule. And because we have one, well, there are only 3 combos of pocket aces left. So what does that tell us? Well, because we have ace queen of clubs, our opponent can only have 50% of the total 6 combinations of pocket aces when we have an ace within our starting hand. So we're effectively saying here that by us having ace queen of clubs, the probability of our opponent having pocket aces has been reduced by 50%, which is quite a lot. And then if we go to the flop, and let's say that the flop has the ace of diamonds, then we can go ahead and we can take off another one of these. So we can remove the 2, and then that tells us there's 1 combo left. So for example, this combo is removed, this combo is removed. The only one left in the deck is going to be the ace of spades, ace of hearts. And then on the turn, if another ace hits, well then you know what? We can go ahead and remove the last combo, and we know that our opponent cannot have pocket aces. So that's how this rule works. It's a really great rule, and I know I've already talked about it, but let's go ahead and revisit that. So let's examine this a bit further with some more detail without all the markup. So again, we have our ace queen of clubs, and the flop has an ace. So the ace of diamond, ace of spades, and ace of hearts. And so now what we're doing is we are eliminating the 3 and the 2, because for every time we see an ace, we remove one of these starting from the left going to the right. And so we know there's only 1 combo of pocket aces left, which is going to be the ace of spades and ace of hearts. So this is a great way when we're playing a tight opponent, especially in a 3-bet pot. When things like this happen, it helps us to narrow down the likelihood that they have a strong pocket pair. And so it would be much more likely, let's say for example in this situation, that our opponent open raised, we 3-bet them with a hand, and they 4-bet us, and we called, and we have an ace and there's an ace on the flop. Well, it's much more likely mathematically that they have pocket kings or pocket queens than they do have pocket aces, because if we have an ace and an ace hits the flop, we know that there's only 1 combo of pocket aces left that they could potentially have, and they would actually have to have quads, but we don't block if we don't have a king in our hand or a queen in our hand, let's say, for example, let's say that we 3-bet them with pocket jacks. If we don't have a king or a queen, we don't block any of those. And we'll talk about blockers and card removal in the next hand. There are 6 combos of pocket kings and there's 6 combos of pocket queens to start with. So they could have 12 different combos of pocket kings and pocket queens and only 1 combo of pocket aces. So it's a great way to look at the likelihood that our opponent has a strong pocket pair. And in this example, when we have this ace of club, ace of hearts, and an ace hits a flop, by doing the math, now we have reduced the likelihood of our opponent having pocket aces by 83.3%. So that's a great way of using this rule. Now let's talk about this a bit more, and let's talk about blockers and card removals, because that's kind of what I already talked about. But in the previous examples, by us having an ace in our hand, what we're doing is we are blocking the likelihood that our opponent has certain combinations of a pocket pair. And that's where the term in poker blockers come from. So when we block the likelihood or the possibility of them having a hand, we are using what are called blockers. And what this does, it provides something called card removal. So when our specific cards remove, or the board removes specific cards from the deck, then the likelihood or the probability or even the actuality of them being able to have a hand is removed. So with specific cards are removed from the deck, such as the ace of clubs, our opponent cannot have any combinations of pocket aces or ace king or ace queen or ace jack with the ace of club. So whenever potential cards that make up our opponent's mate or starting hand range are no longer available to our opponent by either being in our starting hand or on the board, whether it's a flop, the turn, or the river, we can use combinatorics to quantitatively remove those hands, those combos of hands, from our opponent's possible ranges of hands with card removal and blockers. So if you watch training videos and you've heard coaches talk about blockers and card removal, well, that's exactly what they are talking about. Now, in terms of blockers and card removals, it not only applies to pocket pairs, but it also applies to non-paired hands. Now, let's talk about combos with non-paired hands, and estimating those is actually, I think, both of them are easy, but this one is much more intuitive. So we know that with a non-paired hand, such as ace king, there are 4 combos of suited, and there are 12 combos of off-suited hands. And so that's going to give us a total of 16 combinations. So with that, if we think about ace king, let's just think about ace king. With ace king, with the deck, there are 4 aces in the deck to start with, and there are 4 kings to start with. And so if we do a simple calculation of 4 times 4, that gives us the 16 total combos of ace king. So if we think about any non-paired hand, queen jack, there are 4 queens in the deck and there are 4 jacks to start with. So we do 4 times 4, and that gives us a total of 16 combinations of a non-paired hand. Now, how do we do card removal and how do we use blockers in this situation with a non-paired hand? Well, the calculation is very simple. We just simply start with this 4x4 calculation, and whenever a card is taken via card removal, or if we block it in, let's say, a 3-bet situation, we reduce the number of cards in the calculation accordingly based on how many are left in the deck. So for example, if we have ace king suited of spades, and we want to know how many combos are left of ace king in the deck, then we simply just do the math. So we know that there are only 3 left. We started with 4, we remove 1. So there are 3 aces left in the deck, and same thing for the king. There are 3 kings left in the deck. And so if we do the math, it's just 3 by 3. It's going to tell us that there are 9 combos of ace king left in the deck. And if we do the math, we can simply, let me pull up the calculator, 9 divided by 16. When we have that, we reduce it by 56%. So we can use this not only for pocket pairs, but for non-paired hands as well. Now, in regards to doing work and analysis with combinatorics, it can get quite convoluted and a bit complex, and there's some tools, and it's something that we will use while we're playing, but we have to be very quick at it. But it's very valuable when doing off the table analysis. So I'm going to pull up a couple of different tools that I use. The first one is called Flopzilla. So with Flopzilla is a way to analyze ranges and how they connect with board textures, and to look at how often our opponents will make made hands and draws and weak hands, and also looking at the combos of them. So I'm not going to give an in-depth analysis of this. If you're interested in this, I'll put a link to my website where you can actually download Flopzilla. But what I'll do, let's say for example that we have the king queen of hearts over here, and the flop is, let's say, the queen of hearts, 9 of hearts, and 5 of spades. Just randomly pick a few of them. And let's say that our opponent has in their range all pocket pairs, they have all Broadway hands, all suited aces. We'll do some of the off-suited aces, and we'll do some suited connectors, some suited one gappers, some weaker suited kings, some weaker suited queens, and we'll just leave it at that. So what this tool is going to show us, and in regards to this, I know there's a lot of information on here, but in terms of our opponent's starting hand preflop range, it starts with 305 combinations. When we go to this flop, what this is going to do is, if I look at this based on this flop and the range, and there's actually conflict here, so I actually need to remove this. You'll notice that it didn't work properly. We need to switch this to the queen of clubs. Once there's no conflict here, because I can't have the queen of hearts when it's over here, what it does is it breaks down statistically the percentage of our opponent having specific made hands. But as I hover over these, for example, sets, you're going to notice over above this range up here, I can't hover with my arrow while I'm hovering over here, but you'll notice that it says that it's 2.45% of the time, but it says out of all those combos, only 7 combos equal that. So it shows us combinatorically, not only percentage-wise, but how many combos our opponent can have. And this is a great way to look at different situations and understand how many combos our opponents can have, and start working through different ranges with different board textures versus our hand, to understand not only how often they make hands, but also the different combos that they can have of those different types of hands. So that's Flopzilla. Another one that I use is called Premium Poker Tools. So with Premium Poker Tools, they have all sorts of different tools within here, but there's something called a hit calculator, and it's very similar to Flopzilla. So let's say, for example, let's do the same exact scenario. Not entirely the same exact cards. Let's do King of Spades and Jack of Diamonds being our whole cards. And let's just do a random board. Let's say a double Broadway board. And we just pick a random one. And let's go ahead and assign our opponent a range. And let's just slide this over, and we'll just give them this range. Doesn't really matter what we give them. What we can do with this tool is we can scroll down, and we can start looking at combinations of how their hand connects us with this board from a combinatorics perspective. And you're going to notice that, so with this, they started with 245 combos of hands. 108 are going to make made hands. And so if we look at this, and I'll just pull up the calculator. So in regards to how many of their hands make made hands, 108 divided by 245, it's going to tell us that only 44% of their hands make made hands, so 108 of those combos. So we can look at it from the percentage, which it shows here, but we can look at it from combos as well. We can add in different draws to look at the combos as well, and we can add in other combos over here. So this is another way, and with this tool, just like Flopzilla, except this is kind of broken out differently, we can then go to the turn, add in a turn card, and then continue to evaluate the different combos. And you'll notice it'll show the combos, and we can go all the way down to the river. So this is very similar to using Flopzilla, and I'll pull Flopzilla within here as well. But as you're noticing, by doing this type of analysis, it's really off the table analysis to look at different scenarios, to understand how different combos connect with different boards, and to give us a better understanding, not only in terms of ranges, but how many combos of those ranges connect with those boards, which is something I'd recommend you do. But like I said, it can be a bit complex and be a bit convoluted, and it does take some practice. I know that this is, in regards to the concepts in this course, this can be somewhat more on the complex side, especially if you're looking to, and let me go back, if you're looking to start implementing polarized and balanced ranges, it can be even more convoluted and more complex. But as you expand and evolve your poker game, that's something that you'll learn. And in regards to using combinatorics, it's good to think about them in addition just to ranges, because it gives you more of a concrete idea of how many hands it can actually have quantitatively. So anyways, that's going to conclude our lecture on our introduction to combinatorics or hand combinations. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you at the next video. Take care.